The notice on the sutler's wall was still damp with paste when Genevieve Pritchard read it for the third time, as though repetition might change the words. It did not. The War Department, on orders from Congress, was abolishing the position of Army laundress effective the 1st of February, 1878. Her copper boiler held 3 dozen shirts from Company B alone. She had 200 more pieces waiting outside her quarters in wicker baskets, and now the quarters themselves would be gone in 6 weeks. Behind her, boots scuffed the plank floor. A man's voice, rough with surprise, said, "That cannot be right." She turned. The cowboy who stood there was tall and lean, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of new denim. She had seen him before, twice a week for the past 3 months, delivering beef to the fort on contract. He always tipped his hat. He was doing it now. "It is right," Genevieve said. Her voice came out steady, which surprised her. "They are eliminating the position entirely." He stepped closer to the wall, reading. His jaw worked. Then he looked at her, and something shifted in his face, some decision made in the space of a heartbeat. "Marry me," he said. She blinked. "I beg your pardon. Marry me, and you will never scrub another shirt as long as you live." He said it like a vow, plain and serious. "I have a ranch east of here, good water, grass enough for 300 head. You would have a home, a real one." Genevieve felt heat climb her neck. Around them, the sutler's store continued its business, soldiers buying tobacco, a sergeant's wife examining calico, but it seemed to her that the whole room must be listening. "You do not even know my name." "Then tell me." "Genevieve Pritchard, Mrs. Pritchard." "Zane Yancey." He did not look away. "And now we are acquainted." She should have laughed. She should have walked out. Instead, she heard herself say, "Why?" "Because you work harder than any 3 men I know, and you have been kind every time I have brought a delivery, and because it is wrong that they are turning you out." He took a breath. "And because I have wanted to speak to you since September and have been too much a coward to do it." The honesty of it struck her square in the chest. For a moment she wanted to say yes, wanted it so fiercely that she frightened herself. Then she remembered the weight of dependence, the way her late husband's moods had governed everything from the food she cooked to the friends she kept. John Pritchard had been a private in the 4th Infantry, a man who drank his pay and expected her to be grateful for the roof over her head because he had provided it. "No," she said, "but I thank you for the offer." Zane Yancey looked as though she had struck him. "No, no, may I ask why?" She met his eyes. "Because I have been somebody's dependent before, Mr. Yancey, and I will not be one again. I would rather take my chances alone." She walked out before he could answer, her boots loud on the floorboards, the January cold hitting her face like a slap when she pushed through the door. She did not let herself look back. That night she sat at the small table in her quarters and made a list. She had $63 saved, money she had hoarded a nickel and dime at a time from her laundress pay. Her trunk held 2 dresses, 1 serviceable wool coat, underclothes, a hairbrush, and John's old watch, which did not run. She owned the copper boiler, 2 washboards, a mangle she had purchased herself, and a decent set of irons. She was 26 years old, healthy, and she knew how to work. It was not nothing. But it was not enough. The door to her quarters opened without a knock. Sergeant Miller's wife stood there, wrapped in a shawl, her face pinched. "Is it true what they are saying? That you refused Zane Yancey?" Genevieve set down her pencil. "How is that anyone's business but my own? Because you are a fool if you did." Louisa Miller came inside and shut the door. "Do you know what waits for you outside this fort? There are no positions for respectable women, Genevieve. You will end up in a crib in some railroad town, and you know it. I will not." Genevieve's voice was hard. "I will find work." "Doing what?" "Cooking, sewing." "There are 100 women for every position. But laundry, that is something different. Hotels need laundresses, mining camps, railroad crews. Louisa leaned against the door. You are good at this. You could make a living if you had capital to start. I have $63. That will not rent you a building or buy equipment. Genevieve knew it already, but hearing it spoken aloud made her stomach twist. Then I will find a way, Louisa sighed. You are stubborn. I hope it keeps you warm. She left, the door closing with a soft click. Genevieve returned to her list, but the numbers did not improve. Zane Yancey did not come to the fort for a week. When he did, Genevieve was outside her quarters, stirring shirts in the boiler over an open fire. The steam rose in clouds, and her hands were raw despite the paddle. He reined his horse a few yards away and sat watching her. She ignored him as long as she could. Finally, she said, without looking up, "If you have something to say, say it." "I am trying to figure out how to unsay what I said last week." His voice was quiet. "I offended you. I did not mean to." "You did not offend me." She lifted a shirt, examined it, dropped it back into the boiling water. "You made an assumption. That you would want to be taken care of." "Yes." He was silent a moment. Then he dismounted and walked closer, though he kept a respectful distance from the fire. "What if I did not assume? What if I asked what you wanted?" "I want to keep working." She met his eyes. "I want a business of my own. I want to answer to no one but myself. Then I will help you do that." "Why?" "Because you should have it." He said it simply, as though it were obvious. "What do you need?" She almost told him to leave. Almost. But something in his face stopped her, some openness she was not used to seeing. "I need a building," she said slowly. "Somewhere in Cheyenne or another town with railroad access. I need boilers, tubs, drying racks. I need contracts with hotels or crews, something steady." Zane nodded, listening. "How much would that cost?" $300, maybe more. "I can lend it to you." "No." The word came fast and sharp. "I will not be in debt to you. Then we will be partners." He watched her. "You run the business, I provide the capital. We split the profits." Genevieve's heart was beating too fast. "Why would you do that?" "Because I meant what I said. I want to help you." He took off his hat, turned it in his hands. "And because I am hoping that if I am patient and do not press, you might someday see me as more than a stranger who startled you in a sutler's store." She should have said no again. Should have sent him away. But the offer was too good, and she was too desperate, and there was something in his eyes that made her believe him. "All right," she said. "Partners." They shook hands, her palm damp and reddened against his calloused one, and Genevieve felt the first spark of hope she had known since reading that notice. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Zane took her to Cheyenne on a cold February morning, the two of them riding in a wagon he borrowed from a neighbor. The town was raw and bustling, full of railroad workers and freight wagons and the smell of new lumber. They found a building on Ferguson Street, a former harness shop with good light and space enough for equipment. The rent was $30 a month. Genevieve walked through it twice, checking the floor, the roof, the proximity to the well. "It will work," she said finally. Zane paid the first month's rent and a deposit. Then they went to the mercantile and ordered copper boilers, washtubs, drying racks, lye, soap, bluing. Genevieve kept a running tally in a notebook she had bought for 5 cents. The numbers climbed. By the time they finished, Zane had spent $280. "I will pay you back," Genevieve said as they loaded the wagon. "Every cent." "I know you will." He smiled at her, easy and warm. "I am not worried." They worked together for the next week, setting up the laundry. Zane built the drying racks and installed the boilers. Genevieve scrubbed the floors and whitewashed the walls. They spoke little while they worked, but the silence was comfortable. Once, when she looked up from sorting rags, she found him watching her. He looked away quickly, but not before she saw the softness in his expression. On the 15th of February, Genevieve walked to the Inter-Ocean Hotel and asked to speak to the manager. He was a harried man with ink-stained fingers who looked her up and down. "You are the new laundry." "Yes, sir." "I can handle your linens and your guests' personal items. I guarantee clean, pressed work within 24 hours. "What are your rates?" she told him. They were lower than what the previous laundry had charged, but not so low as to seem desperate. He considered, then nodded. "All right. We will start with a trial week." By the end of the day, she had contracts with 2 more hotels and a boarding house. It was not enough to be comfortable, but it was a start. Zane came by that evening and found her tallying figures by lamplight. How did it go? 3 hotels and a boarding house. She could not keep the pride from her voice. "I will have enough work to justify hiring help within a month if this continues." He grinned. "I knew you would." They celebrated with coffee and bread at a cafe down the street. Zane told her about his ranch, the cattle he was raising, the hay he put up each summer. He talked about his plans to expand, to improve his stock, to build a better barn. He was enthusiastic and detailed, and Genevieve found herself watching the way his face changed when he spoke, the way his hands moved. "What about you?" he asked finally. "Where are you from?" "Ohio. A town called Marion. My father was a storekeeper." She paused. "He died when I was 16. My mother remarried a year later, and I did not get along with her new husband. So when John Pritchard asked me to marry him, I said yes." "Did you love him?" The question was direct but not unkind. Genevieve considered it. "No, I thought I might in time. But he drank, and when he drank he was cruel, not with his fists but with words, and he resented that I worked, even though we needed the money." Zane's jaw tightened. "I am sorry. Do not be. He is gone and I am free." She met his eyes. "I will not give that up. I would never ask you to." They walked back to the laundry together in the cold dark. At the door, Zane paused. "I have been thinking," he said. "You are staying in a boarding house paying rent. The building has a back room. You could stay here, save the money." Genevieve looked up at him. "That would not be proper." "I know. I am not suggesting anything improper, just that you have a locked door and save yourself the expense." She wanted to argue, but he was right. The boarding house cost her $1 a week. That was $4 a month, money she could use elsewhere. "All right," she said. "Thank you." He tipped his hat and left, and Genevieve went inside, her mind already working through what she would need to make the back room livable. March came in wet and cold. The laundry stayed busy. Genevieve hired a young woman named Clara to help with the washing, and together they worked from dawn until well after dark. Zane came by twice a week, always with some excuse. He brought firewood, repaired a broken washboard, helped move a heavy load of linens. Genevieve began to look forward to his visits, though she would not have admitted it. One evening in late March he arrived with a parcel wrapped in brown paper. "For you," he said, handing it to her. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a ledger, bound in leather with her name embossed on the cover. "Zane, this is too much." "No, it is not. You need a proper place to keep your accounts." He shifted his weight, suddenly awkward. "I wanted you to have something fine." Genevieve ran her fingers over the embossed letters. No one had ever given her anything so personal, so thoughtful. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You are welcome." That night after he left, she sat in the back room and opened the ledger. On the first page, in careful handwriting, he had written, "To Genevieve Pritchard, who works harder and dreams bigger than anyone I know. From your partner, Zane Yancey. March 1878. She traced the words with one finger and felt something shift in her chest, something warm and frightening and entirely unexpected. By April, the laundry was profitable. Genevieve had contracts with 5 hotels, 2 boarding houses, and a railroad crew working on a new spur line west of town. She hired 2 more women and a boy to deliver the finished laundry. The money came in steadily, and she kept meticulous records in the leather ledger. Zane had stopped asking for repayment. When she brought it up, he waved her off. "When the business is established," he said, "no need to rush." But she wanted to rush, wanted to be free of the debt, of the obligation. She began setting aside a portion of every payment, building a fund to repay him. In early May, she had enough. She counted out $300, put it in an envelope, and waited for his next visit. He came on a Thursday just after noon. Genevieve handed him the envelope without preamble. "Your investment," she said, "with 10% interest." Zane opened the envelope and stared at the money. "Genevieve, you did not have to do this so soon. I wanted to. We are square now." He looked at her, something complicated in his expression. "Are we still partners, if you want to be?" "I do." He folded the envelope and put it in his pocket. "But I want to be more than that, too," her breath caught. "Zane, I am not asking for an answer now. I just want you to know." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "I have been half in love with you since the day I saw you reading that notice, and I am all the way in love with you now. I know you want your independence. I am not asking you to give it up. I am just asking you to think about whether there might be room for me, too." Genevieve could not speak. Her heart was pounding, her thoughts a tangle. She wanted to say yes, wanted to lean into him and let herself feel everything she had been holding back, but fear held her still. "I will think about it," she said finally. He nodded, and she saw the disappointment in his face, but also patience. "That is all I ask." Summer brought heat and dust and more work than Genevieve had ever imagined. The laundry ran 6 days a week, and she was negotiating for more contracts. She and Zane saw each other often, but he did not press. He was courteous, helpful, and always careful to keep a respectful distance. It made her ache in ways she did not expect. In late June, Clara mentioned that Zane had been seen in town, talking to the banker. "Looks serious," she said, scrubbing at a stubborn stain. "Wonder if he is in some kind of trouble." Genevieve frowned. What kind of trouble? Do not know, just seemed odd is all. Genevieve told herself it was none of her business, but the comment nagged at her. The next time she saw Zane, she almost asked. But he seemed cheerful, talking about a new bull he had purchased, and she let it go. In July, she went to the bank to deposit the week's earnings. The clerk, a young man named Thomas, greeted her warmly. "Mrs. Pritchard, good to see you. Business is going well, I take it?" "Very well, thank you." He counted the money, made a notation in his ledger. Then he paused. "I hope you do not mind my saying, but you are fortunate to have a partner like Mr. Yancey. Not many men would take on someone else's debts the way he has." Genevieve went still. "I beg your pardon," Thomas looked up, suddenly uncertain. "I thought you knew. He has co-signed notes all over the county, a neighbor who needed a new plow, another whose barn burned, a widow with medical bills. He is a generous man. Too generous, some would say." "How much does he owe?" Thomas hesitated. "I should not say. How much? Near $1,000 last I heard, maybe more." Genevieve felt the blood drain from her face. $1,000. She thought of the $300 he had lent her, the easy way he had dismissed her repayment. All this time he had been in debt, serious debt, and he had said nothing. She walked out of the bank in a daze. Her first instinct was to go to him to demand an explanation. But the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Not at the debt itself, but at the concealment. He had asked her to trust him, to think about a future together, and he had lied by omission. Just like John, who had hidden his drinking until after they were married, she did not go to him. She went back to the laundry and threw herself into work, scrubbing and wringing and pressing until her hands were numb. Clara and the others gave her a wide berth. 3 days passed. Zane came by on Saturday, carrying a basket of strawberries. "Thought you might like these," he said, smiling. Genevieve did not smile back. "We need to talk." His smile faded. "All right." She led him to the back room and shut the door, then she turned on him. "Why did you not tell me about the debts?" He went very still. "What debts? Do not lie to me. I spoke to the bank clerk. He told me you have co-signed notes all over the county, nearly $1,000. Zane set the basket down slowly. "It is not your concern." "Not my concern. You lent me $300 when you were already in debt. You let me believe you were secure. You lied to me." "I did not lie." "You concealed the truth. That is the same thing." Her voice shook. "I told you I would not be dependent. I told you I needed honesty, and you have been hiding this the whole time." He looked at her, and she saw guilt in his face and anger too. "I did not tell you because it was not your burden to carry. Those people needed help, and I had the means to give it. But you did not have the means. You put yourself in danger. It is my risk to take. Not if you are asking me to build a future with you." She felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them away. "I cannot do this, Zane. I cannot be with someone who hides things from me. Genevieve, please go." He stared at her, his face stricken. Then he turned and walked out, the door closing quietly behind him. Genevieve sank into the chair and let herself cry. The next 2 weeks were the hardest she had known. The laundry kept her busy, but every time the door opened she looked up, hoping it was Zane. It never was. She heard from Clara that he had been seen in town, but he did not come by. She missed him. Missed his smile, his easy conversation, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. But she was also angry and hurt and afraid. She had been honest with him about her past, her fears, and he had kept the truth from her. In early August, she received a letter. It was delivered by a boy who said a cowboy had paid him a nickel to bring it. Genevieve opened it with shaking hands. "Genevieve, I am sorry. I should have told you about the debts. You are right that it was dishonest to hide them. I did not do it to deceive you. I did it because I was ashamed. I wanted you to see me as someone solid, someone you could rely on. Instead, I have proven that I am not. I am working to pay them off. It will take time, but I will do it. In the meantime, I will stay away. I do not want to cause you more pain. If you ever decide you can forgive me, you know where to find me. Yours, Zane." She read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in the pocket of her apron. That night, she sat in the back room with her ledger and did some calculations. The laundry was bringing in a steady income. She had saved nearly $400 beyond what she needed for operating expenses. It was not enough to pay off Zane's debts, but it was a start. She thought about what Louisa Miller had said months ago at the fort. That laundry was different. That Genevieve was good at it. She thought about the contracts she had built, the reputation she was earning. The business was hers, but it existed because Zane had believed in her when no one else did. And she thought about the way he had looked at her, the patience he had shown, the care. He had made a mistake, yes, but he had owned it. The next morning she went to the bank. Thomas greeted her with his usual smile. "Mrs. Pritchard, what can I do for you?" "I want to know the exact amount Zane Yancey owes and to whom." Thomas hesitated. "That is his private business." "I am his partner. I have a right to know." After a moment, Thomas pulled out a ledger. "He has co-signed notes totaling $940. The largest is to a rancher named Samuel for $300. The rest are smaller amounts." Genevieve took out her notebook and copied down the names and amounts. Then she looked up. "If I were to pay off some of these notes, could a repayment schedule be arranged for the rest? For Mr. Yancey?" "Yes," Thomas considered. "It would depend on the schedule. But if the amounts were reasonable, I do not see why not." Genevieve nodded. "I will be back." She spent the next week working like a woman possessed. She went to every hotel and boarding house in Cheyenne, offering discounted rates for long-term contracts. She negotiated with the railroad for steady work. She pushed herself and her employees until Clara finally said, "What are you trying to prove?" "That I can do this," Genevieve said. By the end of the week, she had commitments that would bring in an additional $200 a month. She went back to the bank with a proposal. She would pay $300 towards Zane's debts immediately. The rest would be paid at $50 a month until the balance was cleared. Thomas wrote it all down, then looked at her. "This is very generous of you, Mrs. Pritchard." "It is an investment," she said, "in a partner I trust." She left the bank and rode out to Zane's ranch. It was a long ride and she had only been there once before, but she remembered the way. The land was broad and open, the grass tall and green despite the August heat. She saw cattle grazing in the distance and a neat barn near the house. Zane was working in the corral, breaking a young horse to saddle. He looked up when she approached, and for a moment he just stared. Then he climbed the fence and walked toward her. "Genevieve." She dismounted, suddenly unsure of herself. "I need to talk to you, all right." She took a breath. "I went to the bank. I paid off $300 of your debts and I arranged a repayment schedule for the rest." He looked stunned. "You did what?" "I paid your debts, or part of them." She met his eyes. "The rest will be paid at $50 a month. The bank has agreed." "Genevieve, you cannot do that." "I already did." She took a step closer. "And I did it because I was wrong. I was angry at you for hiding the truth, but I did not try to understand why you did it. You were ashamed. You thought I would see you as weak. But you are not weak, Zane. You are kind. Too kind, maybe, but that is not a fault I want to punish." He shook his head. "You do not owe me this. I do. You believed in me when no one else did. You gave me a chance to build something. And I love you for it." The words hung between them. Zane went very still. "Say that again." "I love you." Her voice was steady now. "I have been fighting it for months because I was afraid, but I am not afraid anymore. I want a future with you, a partnership, a marriage, all of it." He closed the distance between them in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. She felt the strength of him, the warmth, and she wrapped her arms around his waist and held on. "I love you," he said against her hair. "I have loved you since the first time I saw you. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of you. You already are." He kissed her then, and it was everything she had not let herself imagine. Tender and fierce and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, he was smiling. "Does this mean you will marry me?" "Yes." "But I am keeping the laundry. I would never ask you to give it up, and we are partners, in everything, in everything." They were married in September in a small ceremony at the church in Cheyenne. Clara and the other women from the laundry came, as did several of Zane's neighbors. Genevieve wore a new dress, pale blue with lace at the collar, and Zane wore a suit that made him look almost unbearably handsome. Afterward, they went back to the laundry. Zane had insisted on taking her to a hotel for the night, but Genevieve wanted to be here, in the place they had built together. That night, as they lay together in the narrow bed in the back room, Zane said, "I never thought I would be this happy." "Neither did I." He kissed her forehead. "We are going to build something good, you and I. We already have." In October, Genevieve negotiated a contract with a new hotel and a mining company sending crews through Cheyenne. The laundry was busier than ever. Zane sold a portion of his herd and used the money to pay off the remaining debts ahead of schedule. By November, they were free of it. They began making plans. Genevieve wanted to expand the laundry to add a bathhouse. Zane wanted to improve the ranch to build a house big enough for a family. They talked late into the night, mapping out their future with the same care Genevieve used to balance her ledger. In December, Zane came home with news. "I spoke to the bank. They will lend us the money to expand. The bathhouse, new equipment, all of it. Genevieve looked up from the shirt she was mending. How much? $500. At a fair rate. She set the mending aside and went to him. Are you sure? After everything, I am sure. We are building this together. I trust you and I trust us. She kissed him, slow and sweet. Then let us do it. They broke ground on the expansion in January of 1879. The bathhouse would be attached to the laundry with private rooms for men and women, copper tubs, and hot water on demand. It was an ambitious project, but Genevieve had never been afraid of hard work. By March, the bathhouse was nearly finished. Genevieve hired additional staff, including a young man to manage the boilers and 2 women to assist with the baths. Zane built shelves and benches, installed the plumbing, and painted the walls a clean, welcoming white. On a cold morning in early April, Genevieve stood in the middle of the new bathhouse and felt a swell of pride so strong it almost brought her to tears. This was hers, theirs. They had built it from nothing but determination and faith in each other. Zane came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking? That I am grateful for all of this, for you. I am the grateful one. She turned in his arms. I have some news. He looked at her, suddenly alert. What news? I am with child. For a moment he just stared. Then his face broke into a grin so wide and joyful that she laughed. Truly, truly. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. He picked her up and spun her around, and she laughed again, holding on to him. When he set her down, his eyes were bright. We are going to have a baby. We are. You are going to be a mother. And you are going to be a father. He kissed her, and she felt his joy, his wonder, his love. I will take care of you, both of you. I know you will, and I will take care of us too. The bathhouse and laundry opened together on the 1st of May, 1879. Genevieve had placed advertisements in the newspaper, and word had spread through the town. By mid-morning, there was a line outside. She stood at the counter, taking names and payments while Clara and the others managed the washing. Zane oversaw the bathhouse, making sure the water stayed hot and the towels were plentiful. The noise was tremendous, steam hissing, water sloshing, conversations echoing off the walls. But to Genevieve it sounded like success. At noon, during a brief lull, Zane came to the counter and leaned against it. You did it. We did it. He reached across and took her hand. I meant what I said, you know, that day at the fort. Marry me and you will never scrub another shirt as long as you live, she laughed. I have scrubbed 1,000 shirts since then. But not because you had to, because you wanted to, because it was yours, ours, ours. He lifted her hand and kissed it. I love you, Genevieve Yancey. I love you too. The door opened, and another customer came in. Genevieve greeted her with a smile and took her order. Beside her, Zane stayed close, his hand resting lightly on her back. Their son was born in December, a squalling, red-faced boy they named Reuben. Genevieve labored through the night, and Zane stayed with her, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement. When the baby finally came, the midwife placed him in Genevieve's arms, and she looked down at his tiny face and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. Zane sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders, staring at the baby with wonder. He is perfect. He is. We made him. We did. Reuben grew quickly, a bright, curious child who seemed to inherit Genevieve's determination and Zane's easy charm. By the time he was a year old, he was toddling around the laundry, getting underfoot and making everyone laugh. In the spring of 1881, Genevieve discovered she was pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and she worked almost until the day her daughter was born. They named her Estella, and she was as different from Reuben as night from day, quiet and watchful where he was bold and reckless. The laundry and bathhouse continued to thrive. Genevieve hired a manager to oversee the day-to-day operations, and she focused on contracts and expansion. By 1883, she had opened a second location in Denver, and she was negotiating for a third in Laramie. Zane's ranch prospered as well. He expanded his herd, improved his stock, and built the house he had promised, a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch and enough bedrooms for a growing family. They split their time between the ranch and Cheyenne, and the children thrived in both places. Reuben grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved numbers. By the time he was 6, he was helping Genevieve with the laundry accounts, his small fingers careful on the pages of the ledger. Estella was quieter, more reserved, but she had her mother's sharp eye and her father's kindness. She liked to sit in the bathhouse and watch the customers, her dark eyes taking in everything. On a warm evening in June of 1884, Genevieve and Zane sat on the porch of their house, watching the sun set over the plains. Reuben and Estella were playing in the yard, their laughter drifting on the breeze. "You ever think about that day at the fort?" Zane asked. Genevieve leaned against him. "Sometimes." "Do you regret saying no?" "No, because you waited. You let me come to you on my own terms." He kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made, proposing to me, waiting for you to say yes," she smiled. "Best decision I ever made, too." Inside, the house was warm and full of light. The laundry ledger sat on the kitchen table, its pages filled with neat rows of figures. Upstairs, the children's beds were turned down, waiting for the end of the day. And outside, the world stretched wide and open, full of promise. Genevieve thought about the girl she had been, standing in the sutler's store, reading that notice and feeling her world collapse. She thought about the fear, the anger, the desperate determination to survive. And she thought about Zane, standing behind her, offering her a future she had not known she wanted. She had built a life. Not the one she had imagined, but something better. Something honest and true and hers. "I love you," she said, looking up at him. "I love you too." The children ran up the porch steps, flushed and happy. Reuben was talking about something he had seen in town, and Estella was holding a flower she had picked. Zane scooped them both up, one in each arm, and they squealed with delight. Genevieve watched them, her heart full. This was what mattered. This family, this life, this love. She had been afraid once, afraid of dependence and loss and being hurt again. But Zane had shown her that love did not have to mean losing herself. It could mean finding herself, becoming more than she had ever thought possible. Years passed. The children grew. Reuben developed a head for business that rivaled his mother's, and by the time he was 12, he was managing one of the laundry locations on his own. Estella was quieter but no less capable. She had a gift for dealing with people, for making them feel seen and valued. Genevieve often found her in the bathhouse, talking to the customers, learning their stories. The laundry and bathhouse empire continued to expand. By 1888, Genevieve had locations in 5 cities, and she was considering a 6th. She employed over 30 people, and her reputation for quality and reliability was known throughout the region. Zane's ranch had grown as well. He now ran 500 head of cattle and had partnerships with several other ranchers. But he always made time for his family, for the evenings on the porch, for the Sunday dinners, for the quiet moments with Genevieve. One evening in the fall of 1889, Genevieve sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the books. The numbers were good, better than she had dared hope when she first started. She thought about the $63 she had saved at the fort, the fear that had driven her, the determination that had kept her going. She thought about Zane, who had seen her potential when she could barely see it herself, who had offered her partnership, not charity, who had loved her patiently, persistently, until she was ready to love him back. The door opened and he came in, bringing the smell of fresh air and hay. Still working, just finishing. He came around the table and looked over her shoulder. "How are we doing?" "We are doing well." She leaned back against him. "Very well." He kissed the side of her neck. "Come to bed in a minute." But he pulled her up and she let him, closing the ledger and following him upstairs. The house was quiet, the children long asleep. In their room, Zane undressed her slowly, his hands gentle and sure. They made love with the ease of long familiarity, and afterward she lay in his arms, content. "I have been thinking," he said. "About what?" "About that promise I made, that you would never scrub another shirt." She laughed softly. "I have scrubbed thousands of shirts, but not because you had to, because you chose to, because you built something that mattered. We built it. We did." He tightened his arms around her. "I am proud of you, Genevieve, of everything you have done, everything you are." She felt tears prick her eyes. "I am proud of us. So am I." They lay in silence, the night wrapping around them. Genevieve thought about the future, about the children growing up, about the business expanding, about the life they were still building together. There would be challenges, she knew. There always were. But they would face them together, as partners, as lovers, as friends. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. In the years that followed, Reuben took over more and more of the business operations. He had a natural talent for it, a way of seeing opportunities others missed. By the time he was 18, he was managing 3 of the laundry locations and negotiating contracts that Genevieve herself might have hesitated over. Estella surprised them all by deciding she wanted to be a teacher. She studied hard, earned her certificate, and took a position at the school in Cheyenne. But she still helped out at the laundry on weekends, and she had a way of charming even the most difficult customers. Genevieve and Zane grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They celebrated anniversaries, watched their children grow, and built a legacy that would outlast them both. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Zane took Genevieve back to Fort Laramie. The fort was different now, quieter, but the sutler's store still stood. They walked inside and Genevieve felt a rush of memory so strong it took her breath away. "This is where it started," Zane said. "This is where you asked me to marry you. And you said no," she smiled. "The smartest thing I ever did." He looked at her, puzzled. "Why?" "Because it made you wait, made you earn it. And when I finally said yes, it meant something." He pulled her close. "It meant everything." They stood there for a long moment, remembering. Then they walked out into the sunlight, hand in hand, and began the long ride home. The laundry and bathhouse on Ferguson Street was still the flagship of the operation. Genevieve had expanded it twice, adding more baths, more equipment, more staff. On any given day, it was a hive of activity, steam rising, water sloshing, voices calling back and forth. Reuben managed the accounts now, his neat handwriting filling the ledger Zane had given Genevieve all those years ago. Estella came by after school to help with the customers, her gentle manner putting everyone at ease. Genevieve still worked, though not as hard as she once had. She supervised, negotiated contracts, handled the finances. But mostly she watched, proud of what they had built, grateful for the life she had been given. On a warm afternoon in May of 1899, Genevieve stood in the bathhouse and watched the activity around her. The room was full, customers soaking in the tubs, staff bustling back and forth with towels and soap. At the counter, Reuben was tallying the day's receipts, his face serious and focused. Outside, she could hear Estella talking to a group of children, her voice patient and kind. Zane came up beside her and slipped his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "That we did it." "Did what?" "Built something that lasts." He kissed her temple. "We did, together." She turned to look at him. His hair was gray now, his face lined, but his eyes were still the same, warm and full of love. "Do you remember what you said that day? In the sutler's store, marry me and you will never scrub another shirt." "You were wrong, you know," he laughed. "I know, but you were also right. Because I never had to, I chose to, and that made all the difference." He pulled her close, and she rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Around them, the bathhouse hummed with life. Steam rose, water splashed, voices echoed. It was loud and chaotic and beautiful. It was theirs, and it was everything she had ever wanted.